Hi, I'm Rachelle Mee-Chapman, and this is Relig-ish, a show about creating authentic, right-fit spiritual practices. Now, this show is for those of you who are sitting out there in your pew and you're thinking, why isn't any of this working for me anymore? And it's also for you pastors and church leaders who are behind the pulpit or who are behind the mic, and you're looking out at your congregation and you're thinking, why isn't any of this working for them anymore? I know that you have a desire to live out the teachings of Christ in authentic ways in your current world. And I know that you're having a hard time doing that. And it's because something is broken. But I want to say that the thing that's broken in church is not necessarily worship style. You can fill your sanctuary with 1,000 IKEA candles. You can move over to the coffee shop instead of the sanctuary and meet on leather sofas. You can make sure every one of your worship leaders has an ironic hipster mustache. Whatever, that's not going to solve the problem. Because the problem is not that our worship style isn't modern or postmodern or postmodern. Our problem is that there's something broken within the practices of church, and it's not about style. So what is broken in how we do church? I would say that what the main problem is that the practices of our faith do not empower us to live out the core values of our faith as taught by Jesus. They're not in alignment. Practices and values are misaligned. And that's why the things that we're asking our congregants to do, or that you're being asked to do, aren't working anymore. Prayer doesn't let justice reign. Singing doesn't help us pass out food to the hungry. Volunteering within the four walls of the church doesn't get us connected to the immigrant and the stranger. Tithing doesn't help us take care of the widow and orphan. And sitting in the pews doesn't help us extend the loving hand of Jesus to the world. So if music and sermons and pew sitting and tithing isn't doing the trick, of course you're feeling discontentment because you're investing all of your energy and resources into those practices, and those practices aren't helping you live out the way that you want to live. So for some people, those things do work. For some people, the singing and the praying and the sermons and the Bible study fill them up so that they can then go out and pour out love on the world. And for those people, I want to say, I'm so glad for you, because there are many, many places where you can gather and engage in those practices and let those practices empower you to live a Christly life. But for those of us for whom those practices are no longer working, we don't have a place to gather. We don't have a place to create new practices, and we don't have a new place to explore without judgment. And that's what I'm hoping that this place here at Relig-ish can be. That sort of virtual tribe for those of us who need help aligning our practice and our core values. So how do we get started? Well, the first thing we have to do is identify what the core values of our faith are. And they may be slightly, like what I consider to be the most important teachings of Jesus and of the faith might be slightly different than what you consider to be the core teachings of Jesus and the faith, but a lot of them will overlap, and we can each practice some of them, and then we'll get them all covered. So next week, we're really going to talk about how do we sort of pick out the core values of our faith from the traditions and the midrash and the habits that have developed up around them, the habits that might have helped us practice those things in one time and culture, but aren't helping us practice those things in the current time and culture. And then we're going to start exploring different kinds of practices that let us actually live those values out. Now, between now and next week, there's something that I need you to do if this exploration that we're doing together is going to be profitable. And that is, I need you to give yourself permission to enter into this exploring, curious place of renewed and new practices for yourself and your family. And there's only one place you can get that permission. It's not from me, and it's not from your pastor, and it's not from your parents, it's from you. So I've written a charge called You Have Permission, and I put the link to it in the liner notes below. And I hope you'll go and give it a read or give it a listen, depending on your preference, and just let me speak that charge over you to empower you to step into a place of permission and exploration so that we can move forward together. So do check out that link between now and next week. And then next week on Relig-ish, we'll talk more about identifying your core values. And until we meet again, I would encourage you to be curious, trust your gut, and live from a place of love. Amen? Amen.